Hello friends, I welcome all of you to my new lecture session on chemistry of caffeine. So in this lecture we will see a little bit about the history of caffeine and we'll see how actually structure of caffeine was elucidated. Okay, the entire details we will see. First let us see what is caffeine. Caffeine is isolated from tea leaves, coffee beans, cola nuts and cocoa beans. So this is what from where we get largely caffeine. Caffeine exists in nature as a salt of chlorogenic acid. As you all knew, caffeine is an alkaloid. So all alkaloids in nature exist as salts or complexes of organic acids. So this is what we call it as a chlorogenic acid. It was discovered almost simultaneously by Runge, Robiquet and Pelletier in 1820 in their studies on coffee as well as tea leaves. One cup of coffee is almost equivalent to 100 milligrams of caffeine. It contains 100 milligrams of caffeine. Okay, caffeine is a CNS stimulant and often found in headache medicines. And this also has very good diuretic properties. It is used extensively in preparation of beverages like Coca-Cola. Let's say a little bit about isolation of caffeine, how actually caffeine is isolated in the industry. In the industry, largely caffeine is obtained from tea dust. So they take tea leaves dust and mix it with sodium bicarbonate and a little water and keep it in a Soxhlet apparatus, very huge Soxhlet apparatus, and they will extract it with benzol. Benzol is nothing but a mixture of benzene and toluene and other aromatic compounds obtained in the petroleum distillation. It is done via Soxhlet extraction. But right now in the industries, benzene is almost not being used. Mostly it is replaced with dichloromethane. Now we get the extract. What is it? The organic extract is what we have right now here. This extract will be concentrated to get the residue. Now this residue will be dissolved in a the same solvent, and now we add lead acetate. So here the residue will be reconstituted with the help of a polar solvent, and then to that we add lead acetate. Why are we adding lead acetate? Lead acetate will precipitate polyphenols, tannins, catechins, etc., which are found in both beans as well as tea leaves, which will significantly interfere with our extra isolation process. Because in the beginning, as you can see, sodium bicarbonate treatment will actually free the weak base, because caffeine is a very weak base. When it is there in nature, it is present in nature as a salt of chlorogenic acid. So when we add sodium bicarbonate, what will happen? That chlorogenic acid will form a salt with sodium bicarbonate, so that alkaloid will be freed. So that free alkaloid will be extracted with the organic solvent, but along with this alkaloid, other organic compounds will also come, especially polyphenols. So they have to be removed from the extract. So we are adding here lead acetate. Lead acetate will form insoluble complexes with polyphenols, and they can be separated as a precipitate. Now we have the filtrate. So in the filtrate, what is it that we have? We have all required compounds plus, because here lead acetate is there, we are using a little bit in excess. Hence, that excess lead has to be removed. So this is done by bubbling hydrogen sulfide gas through the solution, the filtrate. Now excess lead will be precipitated as lead sulfide, and now we have a very clear filtrate. So this filtrate is boiled with activated charcoal, or we call this procedure as charcoal treatment. So this charcoal treatment will remove any coloring matter if it is there. Now we have the decolorized extract. So this extract is evaporated slowly to obtain caffeine crystals. So friends, this is the way how actually caffeine is obtained from tea dust. So this is one of the major pathway via which industries produce caffeine. Mostly in industry, the tea powder which is of first class is packed and it is available in the market. So tea dust wastage, the remaining parts are utilized for caffeine extraction. In another way, caffeine can also be obtained by sublimation technique on coffee beans at 220 degrees centigrade. As I told you in the beginning, caffeine as a crystal, when you heat it at 177 degrees centigrade, it will sublime. Okay, sublime means from crystalline state or otherwise solid state to directly vapor state, and upon cooling that vapor state will be converted to solid state. So that process is what we call it a sublimation process. So here for the coffee beans, the temperature we have to maintain is 220 degrees centigrade, so that caffeine over here will be sublimed and then it can be collected by using a condenser or something like that. The third procedure is caffeine is also, because in case of industry the product has to be obtained with minimal cost, so the inputs are to be, the price of the inputs have to be reduced. So here what is the input that we are using? Theobroma oil is obtained from cocoa beans. Once after extraction of this oil, whatever remaining material that is available contains a lot of theobromine. So this theobromine can be methylated to obtain caffeine. So this is something like a semi-synthetic protocol where we are making use of the leftovers after the extraction of oil of theobromine, whatever is remaining. From there we isolate theobromine. Theobromine, large quantities it is available in this material, and that can be methylated by using methyl iodide or something like that to obtain caffeine. Okay, so these are the three industrially used procedures available for us. So when crystallized from water, caffeine forms long needle-like crystals with one molecule of water. Means what crystallization, solvent for crystallization is also there. It will entrap one molecule of water. At 100 degrees centigrade, if you heat the crystal at 100 degrees centigrade, the water can be removed from crystal. It is soluble in alcohol, benzene, dichloromethane, and fairly soluble in water. It's a weak monoacidic base and forms salts with strong acids like hydrochloric acid and sulfuric acid. It even can react with acetic acid also. So acetate salt can also be formed. So how to identify it? Let's see one very popular test. We call this test as a Murex test. Let's see the sequence. Caffeine, you take caffeine in a china dish or a crucible, add a few drops of nitric acid to it. Then heat it on open flame or on steam bath to evaporate. So this procedure, usually it is done on open flame so that it gives you yellow color residue. So this yellow color residue is heated further slightly to obtain slightly brownish color residue. So to that we add ammonia solution. So this ammonia reacts with that brown color residue to give us purple color solution. So this is a very characteristic test for caffeine. It can also be used for other xanthine alkaloids. Now let's see the chemistry of caffeine. Okay, chemistry of caffeine has almost 100 years of history, because the molecular formula for caffeine was actually established by 1854. Its molecular formula was identified as C8H10O2N4. Okay, these are the four elements that we find in chemistry in caffeine. So we have a formula to calculate degrees of unsaturation. So this formula 2C plus 2 plus N number of nitrogens minus hydrogens minus monovalent atoms by 2. So if you substitute all these numbers, what you will get? You will get 6. So here 6 means what? 6 double bonds. 6 pi bonds can be there, or every one of the degree of unsaturation can represent a pi bond or a ring. So you can have 6 double bonds or 5 double bonds, 1 ring, or 4 double bonds, 2 rings. Like that, so many permutations and combinations will come. But this degrees of unsaturation is a very important calculation which helps us reduce the number of possibilities. to corner the structure very easily, to obtain the structure. Now they have done, because as you knew, in case of natural product structural elucidation, they do gradually several different types of degradative reactions to obtain information regarding the substitutions, functional groups, and carbon skeleton that is there within the natural product. Carbon skeleton that is there within the natural product. So first, because this is an alkaloid, so they have done first the nature of nitrogen. So here what they did is degradative reactions like Hershey-Meyer method and G-cell method both indicated presence of 3 N-methyl groups. How it is done? So it is done like extensively, because they treat methyl iodide with hydrogen iodide. So N-methyl compound with hydrogen iodide, and it gives them hydrolyzed product or degraded product. NH will be there, and then here what is it that we have? Ethyl iodide has come, because here it is N-ethyl compound. If we have had we have N-methyl compound, we would be getting here methyl iodide. So this will be treated with silver nitrate to obtain silver iodide. So here gravimetric analysis will be done to obtain the number of methyl groups that are present over here. So here in this method they found 3 methyl groups were there on 3 nitrogens. So how many nitrogens we have here? 4 nitrogens are there. So 3 of the nitrogens are N-methyl, carrying N-methyl groups, and 1 of the nitrogen is free. And oxidative degradation is another method. So here in this oxidative degradation, because on caffeine hundreds of reactions were done, but whatever reactions which gave us some kind of a indication on presence of a functional group is actually what I am mentioning over here. So here in case of oxidative degradation, we got some kind of a link between uric acid and caffeine. So caffeine, upon oxidation with potassium perchlorate and then hydrochloric acid, it gave them 1,3-dimethylalloxan and N-methylurea. N-methylurea is a known compound at that time, but 1,3-dimethylalloxan is not a known compound. So they wanted to know what is the structure of N-methylalloxan. So after obtaining the alloxan, so what they have done is to determine the structure of alloxan, 1,3-dimethylalloxan was taken, and they have done hydrolytic reaction to obtain 2 simple compounds which are known at that time. So one of them is symmetric dimethylurea, second one is mesoxalic acid, or we call it as oxomelanic acid, 2-oxomelanic acid. Both these compounds are known at that time. So after obtaining these compounds, what they have done is they simply have done an amide formation reaction to obtain the product like this. Okay, this compound was synthesized, and they found that this compound is exactly identical with the 1,3-dimethylalloxan. Hence they confirmed the structure of 1,3-dimethylalloxan as this one, a pyrimidine ring containing 4 double bond O's. So this observation, because this structural fragment was obtained by degradation of both caffeine as well as uric acid, so this indicated that caffeine and uric acid are carrying some kind of similarity in their structure. This observation further made them conclude that a fragment like this can be there, because if you see this compound 1,3-dimethylalloxan was actually obtained via oxidative degradation of caffeine. So upon oxidative degradation of caffeine, they got dimethylalloxan as well as urea. So urea must have been separated from this ring via hydrolysis or removal from hydrolytic cleavage or otherwise oxidative cleavage from at least 2 points. Okay, otherwise it cannot suffice the molecular formula. Hence, it is possible only when we have adjacent carbonyls being attached to the remaining part of the structure, then only it is possible. And this molecule is actually symmetric in nature. So across these 2 double bond O's, it is symmetric. So any one of these 2 groups can be taken. So that is what made them conclude that this fragment, like a pyrimidine dione ring, can be there in the structure of caffeine as well as uric acid. And if you see the molecular formulas here and degrees of unsaturation for this fragment is 4. Whereas in case of caffeine, the degrees of unsaturations we have seen as 6. That means 2 more unsaturations are to be accounted for. If you compare the molecular formula, for this fragment we have C6, H6, O2 and N2 is the molecular formula. Whereas for caffeine, it is C8, H10, O2 and N4. What is the difference? C2, H4 and N2. In this C2, H4, N2, because here you can see clearly that only 2 N-methyl groups are there. So one of the nitrogen and a CH3 has to be removed from here to accommodate one NCH3 group. NCH3 group. So what is remaining? One hydrogen, carbon and nitrogen. So this type of elemental composition can be accommodated in the structure of an organic compound, especially in this typical condition, and also by observing that obtaining N-methyl urea as a degraded product. So all these indicated that there can be definitely presence of another ring structure next to our pyrimidine ring. So if you look at the number of atoms that are available, only a 5-membered ring can be accommodated over there. But Fischer has done one more very interesting experiment which confirmed presence of 5-membered ring. That is what we will see in the next slide. So here Fischer's observations are very, very important. What he has done is, as you have seen, in caffeine's degradation, oxidative degradation gave us 1,3-dimethyl alloxan as well as N-methyl urea. But along with this, several other degraded products will be obtained. So one of the degraded product is N-methyl hydantoin. N-methyl hydantoin, whose elemental formula is C4H6O2N2. Okay, so here because they don't know the structure of N-methyl hydantoin, so they have done hydrolysis of N-methyl hydantoin to obtain N-methyl glycine in one compound at that time, and 1 mole of carbon dioxide and 1 mole of ammonia. So this observation made them realize that a structure like a 5-membered ring like this can be there in the structure of N-methyl hydantoin. This observation, as well as the observations made earlier, confirmed presence of a bicyclic ring structure, okay, fused ring. Like here we have a pyrimidine ring, here we have an N-methyl imidazole ring fused onto each other. So this type of structures were proposed after all these observations. But here in case of N-methyl imidazole side, NH can be there over here or here. So this position is 7th position. So here if you see that numbering NCH3, we start from here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. 7, 8, 9. So methyl group can be there on 7th position or on 9th position. So the position has to be fixed. Okay. So for right now with these experiments, what we have confirmed that 2 rings can be there. One of them is imidazole ring, the other one is a pyrimidine ring, and methyl substitutions were accounted for and double bond O's are also accounted for. Only thing that we need to confirm is placement of the methyl group on one of the nitrogens of imidazole. So here again Fischer has done another very simple but interesting reaction. Caffeine was subjected to drastic oxidative degradation. Here he obtained N-dimethyl oxamide. So oxalic acid diamide was obtained, N-methyl diamide, amino-diamide. This indicated that there is definitely a need for presence of structure like this, where 2 nitrogens are separated by 2 carbons. 2 N-methyl groups are separated by 2 carbons. So here if you see this structure, first let's see this. Let's see if it has undergone oxidative degradation like this, half of the structure. Here we have NCH3, you can have double bond O, here we can have double bond O, and here we don't have any substitution, so it will become NH2 ultimately. Or if you degrade it like this, we have NCH3 double bond O, NCH3 dimethyl urea. If you degrade it like this, we have NCH3 C double bond O and NCH3 again dimethyl urea. If you degrade it like this, N and N are separated by only one carbon. If you degrade it like this, we'll get an imidazole ring, like in case of no, this one, hydantoin. So it is not possible to obtain NCH3 and NCH3 separated by 2 carbon units. Hence, if you see this second structure, if you break it like this, half NCH3 C double bond O, here you can get C double bond O and NCH3, because upon oxidative degradation it can have a degraded product like that. And the second possibility is here we have NCH3 and here C double bond on this side, double bond O will come. From here C double bond O will come and then NCH3. So in whatever way you degrade, there is possibility of obtaining this type of fragment only if you have methyl group on the N7 group. So that's the reason why scientists have confirmed that caffeine can have only methyl group on the N7 group of the purine ring. But here one more tricky problem has come, that is positioning of oxygen atom. If you see these two structures, because whatever reactions that we used to obtain the major structure of or the structural fragments or the framework of the compound is they are all oxidative degradation products. Okay, so oxidative degradation of either this structure or this structure provides us same kind of output, whatever we have observed so far. So that's why scientists wanted to confirm whether double bond O is in the pyrimidine ring or in the imidazole ring. Both are possible, both will give you same kind of output so far whatever we had observed. So that's why what Fischer has done is, he has taken caffeine and he has done simple chlorination to obtain chlorocaffeine. So this is an acid catalyzed reaction where chlorocaffeine was obtained. Chlorocaffeine when treated with alcoholic potassium hydroxide, okay, methanolic potassium hydroxide, they got methoxycaffeine. What does it mean? It means that a nucleophilic substitution reaction has happened where chloro group was replaced by methoxy group. Now, methoxy group when subjected to dilute hydrochloric acid hydrolysis, it gave them hydroxycaffeine. Wow, very interesting. So caffeine became chlorocaffeine, chlorocaffeine became methoxycaffeine, methoxycaffeine became hydroxycaffeine. But when they were observing the physicochemical properties of this hydroxycaffeine, they found like it is exactly matching with a known compound, that is trimethyl uric acid. What is trimethyl uric acid? We have 3 double bond O's are there, all are amides. Okay, so all are amide group, double bond O groups. When here what is the term we are using? Hydroxycaffeine. So we don't have any hydroxy group. Then what is the possibility of accommodating hydroxy group in these structures? If you closely observe this functional group, NH and C double bond O are there. NH and C double bond O. So this is a simple amide group. Amide groups in ring structure, they can undergo lactam-lactim type of rearrangement like this. Keto-enol tautomerism like this. So this is nothing but hydroxycaffeine what Fischer has synthesized, and it got tautomerized into trimethyl uric acid. So this is possible only when we have a double bond O over here. If we have double bond O here, then only, because CH over here is available for chlorination. So upon chlorination and then methoxycaffeine, nucleophilic substitution and then hydroxy group, thereby we get C double bond O NH substitution. Let's say if you have this double bond O over here, then like this, if this proton is removed by chlorine and replaced by hydroxy group, it is not possible to obtain keto-enol tautomerism over here. Keto-enol tautomerism over here. Why? Because here we have an CH3 group. There is no possibility of formation of a keto-enol tautomerism over here. So that's the reason why scientists confirmed that this is the structure of, this is the placement for double bond O. And then this observation also is confirmed by this type of explanation. Means from caffeine over here chlorination happens, and then this is replaced by OCH3 group. Upon hydrolysis you get hydroxy group over here, which is further tautomerized to obtain this compound. Okay, so this is the way how they confirmed the structure of caffeine as 137 trimethyl xanthine. 137 trimethyl xanthine. So this is the proposal. Now we have to confirm the structure, because structure confirmation of any organic compound happens via either X-ray crystallographic analysis or synthesis. Synthesis is a golden standard for confirmation of any organic compound structure. Now synthesis of caffeine for structure confirmation. Here we have three different syntheses were there. Fischer synthesis is the very prominent and very easy. In case of Fischer synthesis, the synthesis starts with a known compound, that is uric acid, a natural product available. So this uric acid is methylated to obtain trimethyl uric acid. And now we treat this one with POCl3, PCl3, okay, because of chlorination, chlorinating reagent, where whenever we have a double bond O which is enolizable, upon enolization we have here OH group. That OH group will be replaced by a chlorine from PCl5, POCl3 reagent. In this reaction, this double bond O as well as this double bond O, both these double bond O's won't get affected because they cannot undergo any enolization. Now the chlorine has to be removed, so a hydroiodide reagent reduction can be used efficiently to replace chlorine with hydrogen. So this is the way how caffeine is synthesized. The second synthesis is Brederick synthesis, where he also has taken uric acid, but a small change in strategy, where he removed the double bond O from here by using a formamide reaction, and then he has done methylation to obtain caffeine. The third synthesis is a total synthesis, Traude synthesis, where he used two synthetic reagents. One of them is symmetric dimethylurea, and the next one is ethyl cyanoacetate. Ethyl cyanoacetate. So this reaction resulted in the synthesis of 4-amino uracil, because this is nothing but uracil. 1, 2, 3, 4. At fourth position we have amino group. So this is 4-amino uracil. So this is treated with nitrous acid HNO2 to obtain nitroso derivative of uracil. So this nitroso group is reduced to obtain diamino group. This is made to react with formic acid, formic acid, to obtain the imidazole ring, to close the imidazole ring. So in this way, so he got theophylline. So the theophylline is methylated to obtain caffeine. So this is the way how caffeine is synthesized. So these reactions are also used for obtaining caffeine from natural sources as well as synthetic sources. So friends, this is the way how caffeine, very important natural product which is used extensively in headache medicines and various other formulations, is studied, structurally elucidated. I hope you understand and enjoyed this lecture, and if you like this video, please share it with your friends and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks for your time. Thank you all.